Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 16th October 2022. So we are following this new method now. We will directly see the important articles from the newspaper itself, and thereafter the important articles in detail we will discuss. Okay, so simultaneously you can note it down some developments and how they relates to our syllabus of prelims as well as mains examination. Okay, so this is the front page and you can see the news. Supreme Court suspends Bombay High Court's order on discharging Saibaba. So, in a Maoist conspiracy case few years back, some of the, let's say, alleged members, or we can say urban Naxals, they are being called as, they were arrested and they were under trial. But now Bombay High Court has acquitted all of them recently, and immediately Supreme Court intervened and suspended this Bombay High Court order of discharging Saibaba and others in this particular case. Okay, so this development you should know because they were arrested under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and this is part of Internal Security GS3 paper. Internal Security GS3 paper, you should be knowing about this, and the problems of Naxalism and the new challenges that are being emerged. This year's question paper, if you see, there was question related to Naxalism and the emerging issues related to it. So you should be having follow up on these developments. Fine, hereafter the Supreme Court will see into the case as it has suspended the discharge of those let's say alleged members here detained under UPA Act. Fine. Thereafter, in brief, this news is there: government rejects global hunger index. So India was ranked in this 2022 hunger index as 107th out of 121 members. Okay, so you should know that on 17th of October, as we are, let's say, having this discussion delayed, so on 17th of October, the Hindu newspaper in detail about global hunger index is discussed by myself in that video. So you should have let's say follow up on the 17th October, the Hindu newspaper, for going in detail understanding of global hunger index. What are the different indicators, 4 indicators that are used to arrive at this index, and the performance, why India performed poor in global hunger index and why the central government reject these particular findings. You should be knowing about this, right? Last year this index, India's ranking was 101 out of 121. The before that in 2020 it was 94 out of 107 countries. So you should be knowing about past performance also, because basically the performance is becoming poorer and poorer. ये भी reference के लिए आपको पता होना चाहिए. Now the next news: militant kill of Kashmiri Pandit in shopian. Okay, so Jammu and Kashmir. So we know that insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir is one of the major concern, and therefore this is part of GS3 paper. There was this question from internal security part, GS3 paper. So there was this question over the ground workers, or there is now new term being in news, let's say, which are called as hybrid terrorists, and the new local terrorist organizations are emerging like Kashmir Freedom Fighter Group. It has claimed the responsibility of this attack on the Kashmiri Pandit. In last few months, such attacks have increased. Like at least 6 members of the minority community have been killed in the targeted attacks by militants this year only. So you can see in last 1 year there have been increase in the instances of killing of Kashmiri Pandits, and these are being, let's say, claimed by local, we can say, terrorists, or those people who are not part of large terrorist organizations. Okay, so this is in news. You should be knowing about the names of these groups, because UPSC once asked about this names. Okay, so Kashmir Freedom Fighter Group. Fine. Now moving on. आपने तो ये न्यूज़ पढ़ी होगी. More autonomy, funds and powers needed to function better. Delhi chief, let's say Delhi Commission for Women, let's say the chairperson Swati Maliwal, she herself received threats on social media platforms of rape, and she is explaining here that how women and children are facing, let's say, violence and some kind of, let's say, threats from social media. You should be knowing that the women organizations in the country, like state commissions for women, national commission for women, they needs to be strengthened. All these aspects are mentioned here. You can just give a passing reference here. Why, like, talking about the rising trend of rape and death threats on social media, she said that the platform is unsafe even for the DCW chairperson, citing the recent rape threats she received after writing to Union Information and Broadcasting Minister on seeking the removal of filmmaker Sajid Khan from Big Boss, a reality TV show. Okay, so you should be knowing the recent example, instance where the such kind of, let's say, threats are being received by the noted personality also. Fine, so moving on, let's see the other important news. Okay, on this page there is no important news. Look at this news. Elephant's death puts focus on low-hanging power lines in Assam. You should be knowing that how the elephants are facing threats in the country. And now in Assam, the low-hanging power lines, electrocution of the elephant, put the spotlight on low-hanging high-tension wires within and around wildlife habitats in Assam. This happened near the area, the Dihing Patkai National Park, surrounding the Dihing Patkai National Park. There are total 7 national parks in Assam, one of them is Dihing Patkai. Right, so the park is divided between the Dibrugarh and Digboi Forest Division, and this was the second elephant to have died in and around the national park since the October 7 and the 12th across the Assam since October 5. Okay, so electrocution, poisoning, train hits have been the main causes of elephant deaths. Fine. So GS3 paper environment section also it can be asked in prelims examination. Look at this news. 2,900 crore fine on Karnataka government for waste management failure. This is the fine issued by National Green Tribunal. NGT is a statutory body established under NGT Act 2010. This deals with the kind of pollution, let's say that is their environmental pollution, and NGT is supposed to dispose the case within 6 months. Once it receives, within 6 months it is supposed to dispose that case. It has imposed this much amount of fine on Karnataka government for failing to manage solid and liquid waste management causing harm to the environment. Basically, it is due to lack of compliance of solid waste management rules 2016 and the guidelines by NGT and Apex Boards. Supreme Court, we can say. Remember this, you can mention somewhere whenever, let's say, even the state governments, when they are lacking in terms of efforts to deal with the pollution, such stringent measures are required. Environmental governance. Fine. Next news, look at this news. First flood warning issued at Prakasam Barrage, low-lying areas face threat. We are talking here in Andhra Pradesh. This Prakasam Barrage is across Krishna River. Krishna River is basically in spate. It is swelling and there are threats of floods in the low-lying areas of Krishna district and NTR district of Andhra Pradesh. So you should be knowing about this. There is lake breach in Mandya district and it hits traffic on the national highway. We are talking about a particular Budanur lake here in Karnataka, Budanur lake. Now, 6 varieties of Neelakurinji identified in Santapara region of Western Ghats. Look at this photo here that visitors are witnessing blooming Neelakurinji flowers in the Kalipara hills in Santapara in Idukki district of Kerala. It is in Idukki district of Kerala. Fine. So blooming of Neelakurinji, a vast area of Kalipara hills of Santapara in Idukki, Kerala. An expert team has identified 6 varieties of plant across the region. All these Neelakurinji species are endemic to the Western Ghats and spread over nearly 200 acres of this Kalipara hills. Okay, so just remember this. The wildlife warden of Ernakulam National Park said that this Ernakulam National Park is the biggest sanctuary of Neelakurinji flowers. Remember this also, Neelakurinji flowers. Basically, it is part of Western Ghats habitat. Now, look at this. Our Prime Minister is saying that use of regional language in legal system is important to bring ease of justice. People's faith in the constitutional institutions gets strengthened when justice is seen to be delivered. There is a famous caption that justice should not only be done, it should be seen as done. Generally we call it as a procedural justice. ठीक है, justice, if it is not done in appropriate procedure, then it may be perceived that justice is not done. Okay, for example, simply if we say that the encounter killings हमें लगता है कि justice is done, but it should be seen as done, that through proper procedure of the legal system, that we can say that criminal justice system, it should be going through that. Then he cited the delay in getting justice as one of the major challenges faced by the people of the country. Somehow it looks like irony because there are a lot of pending recommendations by the collegium system or collegium, and the central government is not appointing or transferring those judges according to the recommendations of collegiums. So yes, it is important that both executive and judiciary should play their role, and in a consensus manner they should try to appoint all those judges, and the pending cases before the high courts and Supreme Court should reduce. This will ensure the justice to the people. Now, look at this news. Center considering Sri Lanka's proposal to translocate gaurs. See, gaur is very important herbivore for especially in the Western Ghats, an Indian gaur. So Indian government is considering the proposal from Colombo, Sri Lanka, to export number of gaurs or Indian bison, we call it, to Sri Lanka to revive the population of this Indian gaur that have been extinct on the island since end of 17th century. This is being called as wildlife or zoological diplomacy. The recent example is cheetah were reintroduced in India from Namibia and South Africa. Okay, this is being called as wildlife or zoological diplomacy. You can mention this whenever, let's say, the question is also related to IR section. Okay. So wildlife or zoological diplomacy, note it down. All these key terms related to our syllabus, you should note it down in your notes. You should use this in your answer. Fine. This was first proposed by the conservationist in Sri Lanka named Rohan Patiyongada, who was awarded a Lenin Medal in 2022. It is UK based equivalent medal of Nobel Prize for Zoology. So very famous award, Lenin Medal 2022 was given to this conservationist, and he has proposed this project of translocation of these Indian gaurs or Indian bison to Sri Lanka. So India-Sri Lanka relations, that aspect along with this wildlife or zoological diplomacy, that can be also promoted. Now, Government of India rejects global hunger study, calls it an attempt to tarnish India's image. So yes, recently Global Hunger Index 2022 GHI was released. The details about it 17th October, The Hindu newspaper. One must follow this The Hindu newspaper articles on 17th, and yes, we have dealt in The Hindu newspaper analysis about global hunger index. So we will not go in details of that. Briefly let me tell you that India's rank 107th out of 121 and India's score 29.1 on the scale of 0 to 100, 0 being no hunger, 100 the worst category. Okay, and it is worse than the score of 28.2 in 2012. So basically it is declining, barring, let's say, or except Afghanistan, all other India's neighbors or South Asian countries, they are having better rank than India. That aspect can be done, understood. Basically, India has rejected this finding on the basis of certain aspect or certain arguments, that estimate of proportion of undernourished that is used to calculate undernourishment component or indicator. Undernourishment, 1/3 weightage is given to this component. So the population, it is based on the opinion poll conducted on sample size of 3000 on food insecurity and experience scale, survey module of FAO organization of UN. Now this actually the argument is negated by the, let's say, the organizations, Weltenberg and Common Concern. Basically they are rejecting this claim of Government of India, saying that the undernutrition or undernourishment, this indicator is calculated on the basis of data by the individual governments itself, and this is collected by the FAO on the basis of food balance sheet. Okay, so this is not related to let's say proportion of undernourished POV population. Fine. So you should be following the global hunger index and the issues surrounding it on 17th of October. Next day, The Hindu newspaper. Now look at this news. ISRO's LVM-3 to launch 36 OneWeb satellites on 23rd October. ISRO's heaviest rocket LVM-3 will launch British startup OneWeb's 36 broadband satellites from the Sriharikota on 23rd October, making it launcher's entry into global commercial launch service market. You should know that LVM-3 was earlier called as GSLV Mark 3, okay, or MK3. Remember this, earlier it was in news when it was being developed, and now we are successful in this technology. This is very important because it uses cryogenic engine. It uses cryogenic engine and this has capacity of having more fuel, and because of that it can carry more load to the larger distances, and therefore we can say that communication satellites which are, we can say that, geostationary satellites at around 35,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface, they can be launched with this particular launch vehicle. Fine. So remember this from science and technology perspective. Now moving on. Okay, so world page, it's fine, the news are not that much important. Now science and technology page is very important on Sunday's newspaper, science and technology and FAQ page, or explained page indirectly we can say. Now look at this news, neutralizing antibodies against multiple SARS-CoV-2 variants. This is being developed by the consortium of research institutions like ICMR, partnered with Department of Biotechnology, International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, New Delhi, and Emory Vaccine Center, Atlanta. They have developed, or we can say discovered, the human monoclonal antibodies towards SARS-CoV-2 variants. This is good development. Why? Because this one antibody that was, let's say, potently and broadly neutralizing across various SARS-CoV-2 variants and Omicron sublineages. You can see recent news that Omicron variants in China, they are, let's say, spreading, they are fast spreading in different parts of the world, including now some lineages are found in India. So this is going to be always a challenge in near future, although we see that now the pandemic is over and everything, but some sections of population will be always vulnerable to such variants. Earlier, monoclonal therapies that were approved for emergency use in other countries primarily functioned by blocking the interaction of virus through its receptor binding domain with the host cell receptor ACE2. Okay, but these variants are basically mutating the RBD domain itself, the spike protein, and therefore we need to have such kind of antibodies which can deal with all these variants, mutations. And this is very important development, that the monoclonal, what we can say, the monoclonal antibodies that are successful in dealing with such variants. This is the new development in COVID-19 research. Okay. Now there is this small news and learning from the new life forms. Okay, so there are many times news that the new species are discovered in Western Ghats, Andaman and Nicobar, Eastern Ghats, or even in Himalayas. Now what is the importance of these new species or the species becoming extinct? Their genes or genetic setup needs to be stored. This data needs to be stored because this can be used in future for human welfare purpose. We know that the present geological era is called as Anthropocene because the global impact that humans and their activities have made after they evolved. A notable effect of changes seen in the Anthropocene has been rapid increase in the rate of extinction of other species. We know that, and this is being called as sixth mass extinction era. We are moving towards this sixth mass extinction. Now you should be knowing that certain species of shrew, they are having some kind of or secreting some kind of venom, and that venom contains chemical entities of interest to the health professionals. One of the example they are providing here. For example, the shrew here that they are mentioning recently, the scientists from Zoological Survey of India found new species of shrew on the island of Narcondam, a part of Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar. Now in geography we learn about Narcondam Island. Yes, Narcondam is small island and has dormant volcano. Nearly all of it is densely forest. Okay, we know that in India, Barren Island is the only active volcano, Barren Island, and Narcondam is example of dormant volcano. Not extinct, dormant volcano. Okay, so another rare mammal endemic to Nicobar Island is Nicobar tree shrew. Okay, tree shrews are not really shrews, more closely resemble to squirrels, and they are considered to be promising models for study of influenza H1N1 and hepatitis virus infections. This is how new species and their genetic data is very important, and along with that the kind of, let's say, their activities, we can say that they could be used, like for example this venom is can be used for some drugs production, development of certain drugs. So this is how the new life forms should be identified and we should be learning for them for the welfare of human itself. You remember these examples. Now FAQ page, 2 articles important. Why did bank bailout research and Nobel got the Nobel Prize, and the issues in the collegium functioning. Okay, so we will discuss these news, and along with that there is this news on Sunday magazine news, let's say magazine supplement, which talks about Kalinga Architecture. So we will cover that from art and culture perspective. Now, who were given this year's Nobel in Economic? Former US Federal Reserve Chairperson Bernanke, then MIT doctorate Douglas Diamond and Philip Degwick, both of whom are doctorates from Yale University. Now, why were they chosen for the award? For their contribution in research on the banks and financial crisis. You should understand that 1929 or late 1930s, we can say 20s, Great Depression. Great Depression created huge economic recession, we can say, and depression in America and Europe at that time. So it created lot of problems. Now the researcher Bernanke, what is his contribution? His analysis of Great Depression of 1930s. So this analysis basically provided insights into causes. Earlier, it was understood that this Great Depression was due to failure of banks. Earlier it was understood that depression led to failure of bank. But the analysis by Bernanke has said that otherwise, that the bank's failure led to depression. So understanding the importance of banks in the economy, how they work and the vulnerabilities they face, we need to identify them and find the solution. The other two scientists worked on the theoretical models on banks' role in economy and what makes them vulnerable to runs on their deposits. And they also provided solutions. Which solutions? Let's understand that also. Okay. So what framework did they propose? They provided solutions such as deposit insurance or lenders of last resort policy that governments can consider to avoid such issue. Let's understand what happens here. Let's say suppose there is some kind of rumor that, let's say in India, suppose SBI is going to go bankrupt. Let's say suppose. Now what people having deposit account or savings account in SBI will do? They will try to immediately withdraw their deposits from SBI. Suddenly there will be mad rush of withdrawing the money, and because of that what will happen? There will be some, let's say the banks, basically whatever the deposits they are receiving, they are not keeping it idle. They are not keeping it in an idle manner. Rather, they are investing that money in the economy, in different projects, or they are lending that money and earning some interest. So, banks do not have always this, we can say, assets liability match. There is always this mismatch. This mismatch and this rumors or let's say volatility created. So banks will not have that much amount of cash when the huge demand for withdrawal is there. So what banks will do? Banks will sell their profitable assets, long-term invested assets at low cost also in the market, because this needs to be, we can say, given to the amount of money of the depositors withdrawing needs to be also ensured. So this leads to failure of bank. And then some kind of regulation is required. Now how to, let's say, overcome this? Giving high amount of deposit insurance. For example, in India recently what we have increased from earlier there was only 1 lakh rupees were insured, now it has increased to 5 lakh rupees. Deposit guarantee. insurance, deposit insurance guarantee corporation that we have in India. Basically now our up to 5 lakh rupees deposits in the savings account, they are secured by the government itself. Now even if there is rumor, the people will not rush to the bank to withdraw the money because they are now safe. That anyhow our 5 lakh rupees, up to 5 lakh rupees are safe. Anyhow bank will give that in future. So this is, we can say, one more thing. Then the lender of last resort, that is RBI, intervenes from time to time. Thereafter in India several measures have been taken on the let's say findings or research of these economists, like for example dealing with bad loans. This will free up the capital to further lend, okay, or let's say improves the health of the banks. Now why they have been, why these economists were given this year's Nobel? Because recessionary conditions loom over many countries. Already we faced COVID problem, thereafter now war in Europe. This is the challenge, right? So this let's say that's why we can say that they have been given Nobel, so that all countries can be having attention to their findings. Now the next article, Collegium's functioning issues, why it is in news. Last month in September end, there was supposed to be the meeting of Collegium for further recommendation and transfer of judges, but this did not happen, and thereafter let's say new CJI was recommended. Basically by convention, when the new CJI is recommended, thereafter the Collegium is dissolved. For almost 1 month the Collegium does not work. Now the main issue here is, you should be knowing that many times new CJI is having very less tenure, like 2 months, 3 months, like present let's say outgoing CJI. So he was having 2 to 3 months only tenure. So basically it reduces the working of Collegium, so the time period, and therefore the functioning of overall judicial appointments and all this, the main development. Then other aspects, basically we all know that there is opaqueness in working, and let's say there is some kind of conflict between executive and judiciary in appointments. There is issue of segregations of name, segregation and delay by the executive in appointing these authorities. So you should be knowing this issue, and for this purpose you should follow again 17th October the Hindu newspaper, where these issues are in detail discussed. In explain page or text and context page there was this article again, and this is explained in detail. You should just know the context for this article. Fine. Now the last article relates to Kalinga architecture. Just see the architecture setup, because this can be asked in the mains examination also. Basically it is subtype of Nagara style of architecture. Nagara style in northern India and Dravida style in southern India, temple architecture is very famous. This Kalinga architecture can be divided into 3 parts. One is Rekha Dev, or 2 parts basically, Devula, and we can say that the what you can say, this one Jagmohan, Devula and Jagmohan. Okay, so in Devula there are 3 types. Let's understand these 3 types. Rekha Devula, then we can say that Pidda Devula and Khakara Devula. In detail, let me give you that information to you. Okay, Pidda Devula refers to square building with the pyramid shaped roof like Vimana. This is the main building, we can say, with Shikara. Like for example, Konark Sun Temple, the assembly hall of Konark Sun Temple. And Rekha Devula, we are talking about the main building, tall building with Shikara. And the most distinct example of Rekha Devula is Lingaraja Temple, Bhuvaneshwar. Okay, so Rekha Devula means shrine with different parts in line. So Lingaraj temple having Vimana and all these are the best example. Then Pidda Devula refers to square building with pyramid shaped roof. You can see here this one, Pidda Devula. Okay, and all of these are let's say aligned with the axis of west to east direction. West to east direction. Okay, so east facing temples are there. You can see that they are located along the eastern coast. East facing are there. Khakra Deula is altogether a different style of architecture, closely appearing to the Dravidian Gopuram design. The word is derived from Khakru, that is pumpkin god, as crown looks like barrel vaulted elongated roof. And this is generally the temples of feminine deities like Shakti, the temple that we know. Look at this, Khakra Deula. Okay? So their architecture you should be knowing here. Fine. Now after that, Jagannath temple, Puri temple, we all know about it. Okay, so briefly the information, it is built by the Ganga dynasty and it is there in Odisha, and Kalinga architecture is there. Three principal deities are Jagannath, Balabhadra and Subhadra. There is annual Rath Yatra, and this annual Rath Yatra is nothing but the chariot festival, we call it as. It is called as Pahandi. What this particular ritual is, it let's say covering 3 km along the grand road connecting 12th century Chagmohan temple and Mausi Ma temple there in the nearby region. Okay, so remember this. Now mains related question, first question related to the article related to Nobel in economics, then this is collagen system basic question, and the Kalinga temple architecture. So try to attempt these questions. Now very simple, just now we discussed Pahandi. With respect to culture of India or architecture, art and culture of India, Pahandi refers to. If you do not know exactly, you get confused here. You can see. Now annual Rath Yatra at Jagannath Puri temple is the correct answer, A. Now look at this question. Consider the following statement about Kalinga temple architecture. Temple is made up of two parts, namely Deul and Jagmohan, and yes, this is true. They are generally aligned from north to south. This is not correct, right? East to west, they are generally aligned. The tall building with Shikara is called Rekha Deula. That is true. So 1 and 3 only, D is the correct answer here, right? Okay, so these are the important articles. Fine, let us stop. Thank you.
The first step towards achieving your dreams is having the right coach. Get the best education with Lukmaan IAS and make your UPSC dreams come true. Download the app now.